I'll read you the statement. I have sacked Robert Jenrick from the shadow cabinet, removed the whip and suspended his party membership with immediate effect. I was presented with clear, irrefutable evidence that he was plotting in secret to defect in a way designed to be as damaging as possible to his shadow cabinet colleagues and the wider Conservative Party. The British public are tired of political psychodrama, says Kemi Badenoch, and so am I. They saw too much of it in the last government. They're seeing too much of it in this government. I will not repeat those mistakes. I mean, that's a fairly sticky wicket, isn't it? Sacking a prominent, a former leadership rival from the shadow cabinet and removing his party membership while claiming to be opposed to psychodrama. There seems to me to be a little bit of room for suggesting that she's done the opposite. I don't really know whether or not you want to talk about this. I do. I want to talk to Natasha about it, but I don't know that will we get a phone? I'll tell you what I'll do. I've got absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we can have an interesting phone-in about veganism. I'm not convinced that we can have an interesting phone-in about Kemi Badenoch sacking honest Bob Jenrick. I don't know if it's one for the Westminster watchers or whether it is something that has impact and interest in the wider world, whether it has impact and interest beyond. So I'm going to let you decide. I am going to let you decide. Whether or not Kemi Badenoch has been hacking people's emails again is a question that many will mischievously wonder. I think we can conclude that she hasn't, but she has been shown evidence that Robert Jenrick has been plotting to defect, presumably to reform, once again demonstrating Keir Starmer's quip yesterday that it's becoming a laundry service for disgraced and or disgusting Tories. But she has sacked him. Is that something you want to talk about? I mean, does it make her look good, bad, indifferent? Do you care about this? 0345 6060973 is the number you need. It might be a little bit tricky to do both topics, but it is very much breaking political news. However, as I tell you on an almost daily basis, being breaking news, being big news, being a significant political moment does not necessarily translate into being an interesting or a major phone-in subject. Is Natasha coming to join us on this one? 13 minutes after 11 is the time. Here we are. Are you out of breath? I like it when you have to sprint at breakneck speed into the studio. I think it's fair to say that people might have been speculating upon the possibility of a defection, but nobody saw this coming.
No, that's right, James. Sorry, I was just on the phone to someone trying to find out some more information.
Fair enough. You can do that now. You can do it here.
Yes, shall I just put them on the line? Shall I just put them on the line? This is a huge moment, isn't it?
I think so.
Obviously, we saw Robert Jenrick be taken into Kemi Badenoch's shadow cabinet when she became leader, and that must have been quite difficult for both people to do, right? So there's a person that's just won this election, this leadership contest, bringing you in, giving you a big top job, but obviously you've lost, and you've lost pretty badly. So this is quite something. And you're completely right. We've seen, I think, 23 former Tories move over to the Reform Party in the last year. But Kemi Badenoch saying today that she has received irrefutable evidence that Robert Jenrick was plotting to do so. And just before, I'm told, the local election. So at a moment to try to cause maximum damage for the Conservative Party at a time where they're already facing a lot of pressure. And I'm told that they'd seen this evidence. They'd been told that Robert Jenrick had been meeting with Nigel Farage, including having dinner with him at the end of last year. And they had what they believed was all the proof they needed that he was about to hugely embarrass Kemi.
So in April, May of this year, it would be late April, early May.
Yeah, I guess so. Sometime between now and the May local elections, which obviously Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party, are going to face a really tough time in. So the person I've just been speaking to within the Conservative Party has described it as a total stab in the back to the party that voted for him and his shadow cabinet colleagues as well. They said it's really disappointing that we've done our utmost to try to accommodate him, giving him a big brief that played to his talents, and Kemi is feeling really disappointed about it.
As a tireless chronicler of Kemi Badenoch's competence or lack thereof, I need to ask, there's no chance she's got this wrong, is there? There's no chance that she's been misinformed or misled.
In fairness, we have been hearing about Robert Jenrick potentially plotting and his upset with the sort of direction of leadership under Kemi Badenoch for a while, since basically she was appointed. She appointed him to that shadow cabinet job. So for the last year, there's been lots of rumours about what Robert Jenrick is up to and whether he has been on manoeuvres. That has been in play for quite a long time. And to be fair, she's not taken any action against it, or those rumours, in the last year.
You can't, can you, really? You can't.
It's just speculation, unless you do have some form of proof. And like I say, they are pointing to this proof being conversations that have been had, dinners that have been had. I mean, why on earth would Robert Jenrick go to meet Nigel Farage unless there was a real chance?
Unless they're discussing a defection. Should we have a listen to what she's had to say herself in the last few minutes?
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the shadow cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could. Because the British public are tired of political psychodrama. So am I. They saw too much of it in the last government. They're seeing too much of it in this government. I will not repeat those mistakes. When I was elected leader, I committed to doing politics differently. Disloyalty and dishonesty undermine trust in politics. They're also disrespectful to our party members, our councillors, MPs, and most of all, voters. You all deserve better. Conservatives suffered a heavy defeat in 2024. That was painful, but we are rebuilding with strong principles, clear plans, and with a serious team united around a shared purpose. When individuals choose to walk away from that effort for personal ambition, that tells you nothing about the Conservative Party and everything you need to know about them. There will be more to say, and I know a lot of commentary about this decision. But I want you all to be in no doubt. It's a time of global uncertainty. I am focused on holding the government to account, ensuring they are acting in the national interest, and that Conservatives deliver a proper plan for a stronger economy, stronger borders, and a stronger Britain.
18 minutes after 11. Times like this, Natasha, you're always sort of trying to think of precedents, and I can't think of any. No,
I can't think of any either, James. It is, I think, totally fascinating for anybody that's interested in politics. And you might not be ready to vote for the Conservative Party again after feeling betrayed by what they've done over the last 14 years of government. But Kemi Badenoch, obviously, was taking on a really difficult challenge. She, won that leadership election. She won it decisively. There were lots of other people in the fray that were trying to take the party in different directions. It's fair to say she's had a very bumpy ride, hasn't she, in the last year? But many people say that she's starting to tick up a little bit in terms of popularity.
What is the difference between because this is the problem Farage has now, is that the two parties to outsiders seem more or less identical since people like Jenrick and others have started echoing the rhetoric of reform, being as racist. What Jenrick has said about, was it cultural coherence or was that somebody else? Or what he said about black faces on the streets of Birmingham. He could easily have been a reform candidate talking about black faces in adverts. And Kemi Badenoch hasn't put any clear blue water between her leadership and that kind of racist rhetoric. So reform no longer have a monopoly on racist rhetoric. Tories have been joining in enthusiastically. Punters can't see much difference between them. And the more people migrate from one to the other, oddly, perhaps, the more similar they look if Badenoch persists in promoting people who say things like, who was the one that talked about cultural coherence? It was a woman, wasn't it? Relatively.
Sarah... You're talking about Sarah Poachin?
No, the Tory...
Katie Lamb.
Katie Lamb. Yeah. So Badenoch has no words of caution for people like Katie Lamb when they come out with what could look like job applications for Nigel Farage's party. Yeah. So punters might start thinking, well, this is the same lot that were in power for 14 years, just with a different figurehead, just with a different frontman. Yeah,
and we were talking, earlier this week about the defection of Nadhim Zahawi, who arguably was Reform's biggest defection yet from the Conservative Party. This obviously would have been a coup of a different scale.
Oh, huge. Let's not, objectively speaking, a cabinet member that's why I say it's unprecedented.
For sure, yeah, and absolutely. And you're totally right that Robert Jenrick is probably more, and especially in the last few years, has probably been leaning more to the Reform side of the Conservative Party. So he obviously found it tough to stay in there. And when you've got a party like Nigel Farage and you see your leader doing things differently to how you are, he was always going to be on defection watch. He was been on defection watch since the minute he was put in the shadow cabinet as Shadow Justice Secretary. In fairness, what would you have done if you were Kemi Badenoch? What was your other option to be but to bring him in your wing and to try to get him to work together with you? I think you're right, though. I don't think there is any sort of precedent for this sort of dramatic sacking, unless, obviously, and Kemi Badenoch said in her clip just there, more is going to come out. We do have more information I'm sure that she will be wanting to share at some point. But, is this being used as a way to shore up her leadership, and to try and show something of strength? Of course, she looks strong. She looks decisive. This is probably a good look for her. And many people will say, it's great that you've sacked her.
She looks strong, but what else could she do? If the evidence she's got is incontrovertible, what else could she actually do?
Yeah.
So, delivery will be a question here, and we've now heard from Nigel Farage, who is, we really have heard from Nigel Farage. I'm not going to play the clip of him squealing Bernard Manning and refusing to answer questions about telling Jewish school friends that they belonged in the gas chambers or that Hitler was right, as a growing number of Jewish former school contemporaries have contended, have explained. He has been asked about this at a press conference, and we can hear that after this.